Good evening, wherever you are in the world. This is Carla from Rehan Allahwala's World of Connections, and I am here today to talk to Christopher Hoffmann, who I first met. I believe he was in California writing a book. That was at least 2 years ago, and now he's in Arkansas starting a new business, and we are going to learn all about that. Having said that, I want to remind you that this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace one conversation at a time. Okay, Christopher, can you please introduce yourself?
And I'm a serial entrepreneur, innovator, artist, author. I live a lifestyle of a creative person. It's kind of I described it recently to somebody as an investment kind of outlook on life, where I consistently invest a little bit of my time and energy into inventions, prototypes, proving ideas to be right or wrong, researching. So there's always something brewing, and the most recent thing that's actually getting some traction and getting all of my attention is a new lighting technology for people to wear. It animates their costume or animates their body, or it creates a sense of joy. So I'll explain that in a little bit.
Okay, Christopher, can we start with what you've been doing in the past few years so we can kind of...
Yeah, roll it up to the present. I get that. So the last time we talked, I had finished my book and I was promoting my book. So I appreciated the time on your show to talk about Heart and Gear, an engineer's erotic journey to freedom, which is sort of this hero's journey out of my one-wheel motorcycle company, closing down, and then leaving my marriage and learning about myself. So after that, I ended up going back out to New York. My daughter had moved out to New York to be a costume designer. And she was like, "Daddy, why don't you just come to New York?" And I got inspired about it. I wanted to go do something big. I wasn't done yet. So I packed up all my stuff and moved to New York and lived in Brooklyn. And so in the meantime, in New York, I'm working at a scene shop building window displays for Saks Fifth Avenue and Macy's. And at night, I'm working on a one-man show to actually, use stories out of my book and promote that kind of off Broadway. So I was working with a producer for, a good 4 or 5 months. And we were getting ready to open a show in Midtown, and then COVID hit. So it was sort of like, all right, now what? And so there was this sense of, I don't want to let go of this show. And then at the end of the show, there was this huge costume that I was going to build and come out in as the grand finale. And so I just thought about, like, what can I do with a costume? What I want to do next? I don't want to stay in New York. New York was getting kind of scary. And so I reached out to some friends of mine on the West Coast, and they happen to have space in their beach house. And so I moved out to the West Coast, knowing that their beach house was close to this old growth forest. And in this old growth forest, I wanted to shoot this little art film. And the art film that I wanted to shoot was, like, if you ask Mother Nature, what would she look like if she really appeared? Like, what if Mother Nature really existed? What would she look like? What would that costume be? And so I set about designing a costume. And we're not talking just like goddess, whatever. We're talking like Mother Nature. And so I designed this gigantic costume and started fabricating this costume. And I realized, well, you can't just follow Mother Nature around in the woods with lighting to shoot this film. You have to mount the lighting on the costume. So I started designing different ways of putting lighting on costumes with diffusers and trailers. In fact, I still got the headdress from the costume right here. So this is actually the headdress from the costume, and it lights up. There's this band around the top that lights up, and then these little pine cones light up, and then there's all this light that comes out the back, and these filaments that go all down and radiate out. So I was building this costume, and then I realized, well, it's got to be more interesting than just lights. So then I used the technology from my one-wheel motorcycle company, the balance technology with gyro stabilization. And I thought to myself, what if I connected gyro stabilization to red, green, and blue colors in lighting? So then, like, as I move around with my body, the color of the costume will change to animate and project what Mother Nature's doing as she's running through the forest. So I started building that and worked with my old software guy from my one-wheel motorcycle company, and he built a prototype, and I started playing around with that, and I had this costume like half built. I researched where I would do some of the shots in the old growth forest, and then I realized, the sensor and this lighting technology is actually more important than just shooting an art film. So I abandoned building the costume. I reached out to an old friend of mine in Arkansas, and she had a ranch out here, and she was actually my theater teacher in my 20s. And I asked her if I could just spend 6 months to a year working on my technology and help her out with the ranch. And so she said, great. So I've been out here for about 6 months working to refine, like, what would this technology look like? So what I've done is I developed this little wristband. So now all this technology is baked into this little wristband that changes color depending on how you move. So there's this little accelerometer inside of this wristband. In fact, I'm going to turn the lights off and show you this. So here's this wristband, and as you move it around, it changes color. But what's really unique about this is they all do the exact same thing. So if you've got two of them, let's see, do I have two of them? Hold on a second. Oh, the back. Anyway, so they all point to the center of the earth. So there's a sensor in this device that knows where the center of the earth is. So if all the people in a hip hop crew move their arms in a certain way, they all change color at the same time. So what it does is it puts the control of changing the color in your own possession. So unlike blinky lights or computer controlled lights that are just blinking in random patterns, the wearer.
I think you just froze. Are you there? He'll be back. Chris, are you there? Okay. I can't hear you. You need to open up your mic again.
There we are. Okay, yeah. I'm back. I can't see you, but I'm back.
Well, that may be the phone. If you swipe to the left, you should be able to see me. Can you see me now?
Yes, that's better. Anyway, so this wristband, what I'm using it for now is in yoga. If you tip your arm anything but level, it changes color. So look how accurate this is. This is blue, and then if it's not horizontal, it starts turning cyan or turning purple. So it's a very accurate way of helping people, self-correct in yoga poses. So I'm working on different markets for this little wristband. So all of that technology is baked into here. So that's the journey I've been on, is to just, it's such a creative wandering path to figure out what is exciting and how to make it into something real and how to make choices. I started out with making a halo that lit up like that, but it was just too nichey. So I just made something really generic. So I'm starting a company called Costume Lighting, and this is the LUMO wristband. And that's what I've been up to.
And what made you decide that this was something you wanted to do? What was the point of it, in other words?
Well, that's a really good question. It's like anything that you do as an innovator, is you come up with an idea that you think there's something about it that's interesting. I started out with just white light, but once I figured out that, X, Y, and Z of an accelerometer could be connected to red, green, and blue, I started looking around to see who else was doing that. And I still have not found anybody that has connected X, Y, and Z to red, green, and blue. And it creates this fascinating three-dimensional color environment because it's literally like a sphere. I mean, I can paint any color of the rainbow depending on how I decide to move. So that's when it started.
I think you froze again.
Yeah, so that's when it started getting really interesting, is when you see that nobody else is really doing that. So I filed a bunch of patents and started working on refining, what would this, what purpose would it serve? So I'm looking for a market where it actually performs a real task and it's just kind of fun. So I've been shooting videos and demos at yoga classes and then interviewing people afterwards to see what they think. And consistently across the board, it's been, wow, this is so much fun. This makes yoga a lot more approachable. It sort of helps me get into a yoga class and not worry about what my body looks like because everybody's paying attention to these lights. Or it makes me feel more animated, or it makes it just a more fun vibe. And then I've even worn them out to like a gallery opening. And there's something about having this warm glow on your wrist that creates this aura of safety. And so there's just so many different ways that this light that I decide how it's going to move, interacts with my environment. And then the other interesting thing is it has a timer, so it just kind of goes out. So if I stand still, it just kind of goes and it's not there. And if I'm in the audience and all of a sudden there's an applause and I start clapping, it comes on. And like, can you imagine the entire audience having these things and the whole audience turns red, and everybody applauds? So I'm just following my intuition.
I'm trying to understand the value of it. How it's fun. I agree. I would love to play with it. How is it going to improve someone who is doing yoga? Or if you went to a play, how would it improve the experience of watching a play?
Well, if the entire audience had these on and, while they're sitting quietly, the audience is dark. And then when a comedian says something funny and everybody applauds, or there's a Broadway show where there's a crescendo and everybody applauds, the effect of the actor on stage is huge. And then the participation of the community, of all the people making this thing happen, is very unifying. In a yoga class, there's an awful lot about being in the proper position. So if I'm in my warrior and I've got my arm outstretched, it really should be horizontal. And if I'm wearing one of these wristbands, if it's horizontal and everybody in the room is horizontal, the entire room turns blue. Where if everybody's sagging, everybody's kind of a different color, and you can self-correct without the teacher saying something. And these are like micro motor controls that actually, I believe, help us with cognition, because It's not just a big motion, it's these little motions to correct, which actually could even help people in retirement homes when you're just trying to do an exercise in a class. So there's lots of applications.
Has it been used in a nursing home yet?
Not yet, but I've talked to people
very
who...
valuable in a nursing home, or very valuable in a yoga class.
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah.
What other uses does it have?
If you can imagine at a like a DJ festival, and everybody in the audience is wearing these wristbands, and the DJ raises their hands up like this, and everybody in the audience raises their hands up like this, the entire audience turns the same color. So it's this big dramatic effect that is controlled by individual people. And there are wristbands like this that are computer controlled, where the DJ can just turn on all the wristbands that the people are wearing and make the audience any color he wants. But it's passive. It's like you're not in charge of the color that is happening on your wrist.
Now, I have been in places where I've gotten kind of stuck, or I can't move forward because the cashier is having a problem, or people have too many groceries and it takes a longer time to check out. Could this help in a grocery store when someone is shopping, or any place where there's shopping going on?
I don't understand how that would be a benefit.
I'm trying to find more benefits to it. What are other uses for the wristband?
Well, I mean, kids love it. I give it to kids and they just go running off and making all these different colors and being a little bit competitive, or they high five each other and then the other person copies the same color. You just use your imagination.
Okay. And can you tell me what else how long did it take you to develop this?
Oh, it's like anything. It's the first prototype of any real new invention that has really kind of never been done before. It's like a year. So I've been at this a full year.
And is it giving you a feeling of pride?
Oh, of course. I think it's one of the most fascinating things I've done that feels, because even the tagline of my company is using technology to inspire joy. So how do we use technology not to scare people or intimidate people, or AI or autonomous driving or whatever? Let's use technology just to create things that are fun to do. I mean, to actually physically participate. Let's not entertain people so they're passive. Let's give them tools to actually go out and create something that's of their own expression. Like more hula hoops, right?
I love the hula hoops that light up. So
yeah, and
this kind of makes me think of that.
Yeah. Oh, it's a perfect application for this technology, because then when you're hula hooping, it's turning red and green in time to the motions you're making, as opposed to just some blinky pattern that, okay, it's blinking, which is attractive, but I'm going the other way. Instead of like all this LED technology with all of this fast blinking stimulation, I want to take it way over the other way and have it more organic. Can you imagine people going on a walk in the forest with lanterns being held by poles that undulate as you move them, and there's just subtle change of color as people are walking through the woods? And so I'm really focusing on how does the personal expression play into this and create beautiful imagery. I mean, if you can imagine just even 10 kids on a stage, and they just learn how to do this blue, and then this red, and then this green, and then we do the blue and the red in time with the music, and it looks great, and it's easy to do. So that's where my head's at.
And what I see is if you were walking through the forest with these wristbands and you were in a group,
Right.
that would be kind of amazing because you would wake up the whole forest in color.
Exactly. It's a walking light show where it's not just white flashlights that people are holding. I love the way you just, visualize that. It's red, green, and blue, and all of these very human motions. So if you can imagine the experience, and I'm sure you've seen this, when you see a firefly for the first time in summer, your eyes follow it. It's just like intrinsic. You are fascinated by the motion of the firefly as it flies through the darkness. And that's very different than just a blinky light goes by on a bike, So it taps into something that I'm still trying to understand.
What about even your one? I know you don't do your bike anymore, but your bike was really kind of cool. I could see that on your bike, your one-wheel bike, and a bunch of people driving them, and the colors just flowing between everyone coming. Do you want to talk about that and how that would be really fascinating?
Yeah, and I'm even, my next move is to talk to people that make helmets. So if you can imagine a band of light that goes all the way around the helmet, and all it does is it changes color by how you move. But what it does is it creates a very human color signature in a highly pixelated urban environment. So in Brooklyn, you're riding your bike, bike messenger style through all the traffic and the blinking turn signals and the crosswalks and the stoplights and everything. But I think people will be drawn to this interesting human signature. That's my hope.
That would also create not only a human signature, but also an individual person will become more creative in using it, or will show more of his or her personality. Can you get more than one color at a time? Let's say you wanted to have yellow and purple together.
That's what it does. So when it's straight up, it's blue, and when it's vertical, it's red. But halfway in between, it's cyan. And then if you take it from green, halfway from green to red is yellow. So it's everything in between. It's every color in the rainbow, because it's just mixing these primary colors based on the tilt angle. Isn't that fascinating?
How cool.
Right? And it just does it. It's just this little accelerometer that knows where the center of the earth is, and it just puts out a tilt angle. And that angle turns into a gain that makes the brightness of the light change. So if red is on 100%, it's just red. But if it's blue and red are on 50-50, it mixes red and blue. So that's all it does. There's no wireless, there's no, computer, sequencing. It's just look.
You're freezing again. Come back. Chris, I have a question. Rehan's saying he loves your bike. Can you talk a little about the bike?
Yeah, I mean, it ended up getting really nichey. And we only sold about 20 of them across the globe. And it was right at the same time as the hoverboard coming out. But what's happening today is there's a company, In Motion, and I believe there's another company as well, who have come out with like the scaled up version of the Rhino bike. It doesn't have handlebars like mine does, but it's gotten really good. It's finally gotten it powerful enough to be safe, like really rideable, and climb up and down, big hills and go almost 30 miles an hour. A buddy of mine just bought one, and it's got suspension, so it can go over a speed bump almost full speed. So the technology over the last 3 years has really taken off, and it looks like an awful lot of fun. So it's pretty exciting.
How long did it take for you to create the bike?
Yeah, and just so everybody knows, the bike is a one-wheel electric motorcycle, and it sort of looks like a Ducati cut in half, and you stick the handlebars above where the gas tank used to be. It was a year for the first prototype that failed miserably, and then another 6 months to add the steering to finally make it rideable. And then it was another year before I raised $2.5 million to start the company up. And then it was another year to get it actually into production. So these things take excruciatingly a long amount of time. Like even making this, it takes a month and a half just to get the circuit boards back. And then it's another, or a month to get my software guy to dial in the software. And then the 3D prints, you have to wait 3 weeks for those to come back. So it gets faster, but it's just a snail's pace.
And this is what you're doing full time. What is the inspiration that made you want to create these? It's extremely creative. Please understand that. I get that. What is it that made you decide that you wanted to do that?
It's just turned into a lifestyle. I've been a mechanical engineer my entire life. I designed machinery in the auto industry for 15 years. I did consumer product development for 5-6 years, and innovation training. And eventually when you go out on your own and you start up a company, I don't want to go back to a job if I can help it. I've had to go back to a job a couple of times, and I ended up walking out, but it's just become a lifestyle. And like I said, my lifestyle is to just always have, enough money to keep investing in things that I find just pique my curiosity. And it's just for my own entertainment. It's just, I just want to, entertain myself. And if I bring joy to somebody else in the meantime, double bonus. But there's this part of me that I just really want to create something huge, like a global trend or a new fad or something that everybody can embrace, and it raises the level of enjoyment and consciousness at the same time. I mean, like when I would see people riding my Rhino bike around, they were just the level of joy, like, oh, somebody's using technology to inspire a bright new future. It was literally like, wow, this is so cutting edge and fun. I'm excited just because somebody took the time to make something out of technology that makes me have so much fun. And so that's what keeps me moving forward, is to just affect people and inspire people. And, like, how better way to live my life than that?
So you find joy in inspiring people to do new things, to find that creativity there. Isn't that really what life is about?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, what else would I do? Like, I've gone through long periods of time where I've just really been in my stillness and spent a lot of time looking out the window, drinking coffee and thinking about what the next thing. I actually started building costumes for a little while. Since my daughter's a costume designer, she inspired me to start doing some of that. And that's what led to this one-man show, which led to this costume idea, which led to moving to the coast to answer the question about Mother Nature. So there's all these things in life that just kind of little doors open. And if you don't have the courage to just walk into that space and look around, life just is kind of safe. And that's kind of a timid way to look at life. So, I mean, I'm living on the edge, but it's a lot of fun. And man, I mean, looking back already, I'm pretty proud of myself for what I've accomplished.
And that's really why I love doing these interviews with Rehan Allahwala, because I don't know where it's taking me, but I have fun speaking with the people I speak with. So
yeah, absolutely.
Considering all this creativity and this new way of thinking, how would you like to leave our audience thinking? How can we make people more creative and wanting to give out their gifts? Are you there? Chris, are you there? I think we have lost him. Let's see if he's coming back. And there he is. There he was. Chris, are you here?
I'm back. Yeah. So considering all this creativity, what was the rest of your question?
Considering all this creativity, what do you want to do to make people realize that life is to be fun and enjoyable, and let's just be creative instead of being stuck in, I don't want to say a job, but I'll call it a job, or something that you don't really like doing? Are you there?
Well, I think I'm already doing that. It's a matter of giving people new tools to inspire them to get together and create things that help them feel expressive. You can take dance classes and a yoga class and do things. So you can go on a walk or ride bikes. You can go scuba diving. There's lots of things that you can do, but to make it accessible, like, just to have some friends get together. Hey, have you tried on these wristbands? Let's go dance in the park in the dark. Or let's go for a walk on the beach with these wristbands on, and then see how we feel about it. Or who knows? It's hard to know where it's all going to go and what people will do, if you give them something new to play with.
What about riding these bikes with the wristbands and just being creative and new? And why do you think people don't want to be creative? They get stuck.
Well, it's not that they don't want to be. There's a lot of distractions in this world that make it easy to sit on the couch and entertain yourself. Like just TikTok, for example, is so addictive, and it's just.
And hopefully he's coming back.
So it's, just anything that helps people to get back together again. Even in the health clubs, I've been talking to a health club owner, and just getting people back to the health club is a challenge. So let's create some classes that are more community oriented and more fun and easily, approachable, and get people back to the health club and back together. And that's my goal.
And I think your ideas are so creative that those things will begin to happen. I want to thank you for speaking with me tonight. It's been fun. Do you want to leave our audience with any particular ideas or creativity?
Well, just follow your own intuition. That's a lot of what I do. If it feels resonant, do it. Go try it. There is no failure as long as you're learning lessons along the way. Always, don't feel bad about throwing a couple $100 at something to see if it's something you want to do. If you can afford to buy a new sewing machine, buy a new sewing machine and sew some stuff. Buy some materials. There's a sense of, if it doesn't work out, don't worry about the fact that you spent $200 on it, because that's not the point. It's just to keep iterating and keep trying out things until something sticks. So you might get lucky. And the only way to get lucky is to be standing at home plate with a baseball bat, so the goal is to get to home plate and have a bat in your hand when they throw the ball, and maybe you might pop something out into right field, or you might hit a home run. There's no way of knowing. So that's my advice. But don't forget links. Costume Lighting is my company. It's Instagram. Costume Lighting is my user on Instagram. So check it out and then follow me and keep track. And I'm just going to keep on going.
And thank you so very much for spending time to speak with me tonight and explain your wristband. I really think it's a cool idea. And it can bring a lot of creativity and joy into the world. What I love is the change in color.
Yeah.
And
boom.
Everything else.
Boom.
Can you imagine, and then we need to go, can you imagine a yoga teacher saying, knowing that if it's pink, your arm is in the right place, but if it's blue, you're completely off base.
Right. And the students can see that themselves, so they can actually correct it themselves. And that's what's kind of competitive about it and kind of fun.
I love it. Thank you so much, Christopher, for talking to me again. Thank you to the people who came and watched. And we are going to close this show now. Christopher, it's been wonderful. Let's remind people that this show, like all of my shows, is sponsored by the Institute of Peace, which is an online organization promoting peace, one conversation at a time. And let's wave goodbye. Can you wave goodbye? See you soon, guys.
Thanks, Carla.
Don't go anywhere yet. Let's